The price of motor oil just went up 35%, and it is still climbing. Industry analysts are calling this the largest supply shortage of lubricating fluids in modern American history. If you are standing in the oil aisle right now trying to decide between Pennzoil and the Walmart SuperTech sitting next to it, you are making that decision in the middle of a supply chain crisis that is going to keep changing the answer for at least the next year and a half. But here is what almost nobody standing in that aisle understands. The specific facility that made Pennzoil worth the premium price was one of the first things damaged when this crisis began. The ingredient you were paying extra for is now the single most disrupted ingredient in the entire lubricant supply chain. Pennzoil is still a legitimate full synthetic oil. It will still protect your engine. That has not changed. But the single most important reason Pennzoil cost more than SuperTech for the last decade, a natural gas processing complex in Qatar called the Pearl GTL plant, owned and operated by Shell, was specifically damaged when the Strait of Hormuz closed in late February of 2026. The very ingredient that separated Pennzoil from a standard full synthetic is now exactly where the supply chain is most broken. Here is why this matters to your next oil change and everyone after it. Motor oil prices are up 35%, and analysts are not calling this a brief spike. They are saying the market may not normalize until well into 2027. We are talking about 18 months to 2 years of sustained price pressure, possible shortages on specific viscosity grades, and a fundamental change in the value calculation between premium and budget oil. If you are still buying Pennzoil out of habit while its supply source is under repair and its price gap over SuperTech has narrowed, you may be paying more for less of what you were originally paying for. This is not a small decision. Over 2 years of regular oil changes, the difference in strategy could mean $200 or more out of your pocket, and a different level of engine protection depending on what engine is actually under your hood. To understand why the Pearl gas-to-liquid facility matters so much, you need to understand what Pennzoil actually is at its base level and where its advantage specifically comes from. Most full synthetic motor oils start with crude oil. Crude oil is pumped from the ground, refined at a refinery, and chemically processed through a method called hydrocracking until it becomes a high-quality base stock. That process works well, but crude oil carries baggage. Sulfur compounds, wax molecules, nitrogen compounds, and other trace impurities survive the refining process at low levels. They are present in the finished oil. You cannot fully eliminate them by starting from crude. Pennzoil chose a different starting point entirely. Their platinum and ultra-platinum lines are built on gas-to-liquid technology. Instead of crude oil, they start with natural gas. Natural gas does not contain the same sulfur compounds, wax structures, or metallic impurities that crude oil carries. When you convert natural gas into a liquid base stock, the result is one of the purest base oils commercially available for passenger car motor oil at this price point. That purity means better resistance to heat breakdown, cleaner engine surfaces over time, and longer protection under high-stress conditions like a turbocharged engine running hard in summer heat. The Pearl GTL complex in Qatar is where that base oil is produced. Pearl is not one facility among many. It is the largest gas-to-liquid plant in the world. It processes natural gas from the North Field, the largest natural gas reservoir on Earth, and converts it into liquid products that feed directly into premium synthetic lubricants, including Pennzoil. When Iranian forces targeted 3 of the primary Group 3 base oil producers in the region, after the Strait of Hormuz closed, the Pearl complex was named as one of the hardest hit. Industry estimates say Pearl requires approximately 1 year of repairs before it returns to meaningful production capacity. That estimate was made several months ago. The facility is still not operating at full capacity today. Here is where the story takes a turn that almost nobody on the automotive forums has connected yet. SuperTech is a full synthetic, sold at Walmart and produced by Warren Distribution, out of Nebraska. It is built on conventional hydrocracked crude oil-based stocks. It does not depend on gas-to-liquid technology. It does not source from Pearl GTL. Warren Distribution pulls Group 3 base oils from a broader network of suppliers, including producers in South Korea, Europe, and domestic refiners. That network is also under pressure. 44% of Group 3 base oil used in the United States comes from the Middle East. South Korea supplies another 30% of the United States market, and South Korea itself depends on Middle Eastern crude as a feedstock. Run those numbers, and roughly 74% of American Group 3 supply is connected to the same disruption. Nothing in the full synthetic segment is fully insulated from this. Total domestic supplies of lubricating base oil have fallen roughly 40% compared to where they stood a year ago, and domestic alternatives from producers inside the United States will not come online at scale until 2027 or 2028 at the earliest. ExxonMobil is expanding production at a Texas facility with a target completion in 2028. Chevron is targeting a Mississippi operation for late 2027. Until those facilities come online, there is no quick domestic fix to the supply gap. But there is an important difference between a broad supply pressure and a targeted facility loss. When one specific source gets destroyed, products that depend heavily on that single source take the hardest concentrated hit. Products that draw from multiple commodity suppliers across different geographies can shift their purchasing mix when one source gets pinched. Pennzoil's premium positioning was built on a specific technology from a specific facility. That facility is the broken link. SuperTech's commodity sourcing, which for years looked like a disadvantage because it lacked the purity of a gas-to-liquid base oil, now looks like a supply chain advantage because it is not tied to the exact piece of infrastructure that took the most damage. Additionally, the light viscosity grades are seeing the worst availability pressure across the entire market. The 0W8, 0W16, and 0W20 grades used in most modern fuel-efficient engines are the hardest hit because they depend on the lightest, most refined base stocks, which require the most processing to produce from crude. If you drive a vehicle that calls for 0W20, you are going to feel the supply crunch before someone running 5W30. Plan accordingly. There is also a second piece of this conversation that has nothing to do with the supply crisis and applies to a specific group of drivers who might be thinking about switching to Pennzoil to better protect their engine during this period. Pennzoil Platinum and Ultra Platinum are powerful cleaners. The gas-to-liquid base oil combined with Pennzoil's additive package is specifically formulated to dissolve carbon deposits from internal engine surfaces. For a newer engine that has been maintained on full synthetic from the start, that cleaning power is a straightforward benefit. The oil goes in clean, and the engine surfaces stay clean. For a high-mileage engine that has spent years running on conventional oil or a mid-grade synthetic, the situation is different. Older engines accumulate layers of carbon and varnish deposits inside gasket surfaces, piston ring grooves, and valve stem seals. Over years, those deposits become part of how the engine maintains its internal seal. The engine has essentially adapted around them. When you introduce a powerful cleaner into that environment, it begins to dissolve deposits that were holding seals in place. Oil consumption increases. Small leaks appear where there were none. The engine is not broken, and the oil is not failing. The cleaner is doing exactly what it was designed to do. But in that engine, at that mileage, the result is a problem rather than a benefit. This is not a rare edge case. It is a common outcome for drivers who switch from a conventional or basic synthetic to a gas-to-liquid-based premium synthetic on a high-mileage engine with no transition period. Right now, with prices rising and drivers looking to stretch their maintenance dollar, the temptation to try a premium oil in hopes of cleaning up an older engine is real. Understand the risk before you do it. So here's a practical framework for the next 18 months. If you own a newer turbocharged engine under manufacturer warranty, follow the owner's manual specification and do not shop down for price. The cost of a warranty dispute or a turbocharger failure is far greater than the extra money per quart. Buy ahead of the next price increase if you can, and check your specific viscosity grade for availability, since the light grades are under the most pressure. If you own a naturally aspirated engine with under 100,000 miles that you maintain on schedule, SuperTech Full Synthetic now makes more financial sense than it ever has. It carries the same American Petroleum Institute SP certification. It is produced by a professional manufacturer, Warren Distribution, and its supply chain is more spread across geographic sources than Pennzoil's dependency on Pearl GTL. The oil will protect your engine. Take the savings. If you own a high-mileage engine with over 100,000 miles that has been running on conventional oil, do not jump to Pennzoil Platinum right now. The aggressive cleaning profile creates real risk in a high-mileage engine with existing deposits. If you want to transition toward a better synthetic, use a high-mileage formulation designed specifically for engines with accumulated deposits. Give the engine a gradual transition rather than a sudden cleaning shock. If you are already using Pennzoil in a turbocharged or performance engine, and it is performing well, stay with it if you can source it at a price that still makes sense. But buy ahead of June if you can. Multiple analysts have flagged the next large price increase arriving in June, and stocking a few extra quarts now is a more practical strategy than paying significantly more in 4 to 6 weeks. So bring the full picture together. The question was whether Pennzoil is still worth it over Walmart. For most of the last decade, the honest answer was that it depended on your engine. For the next year and a half, there is a new layer on top of that answer. The thing you were paying extra for with Pennzoil, the gas-to-liquid base oil from Shell's Pearl complex in Qatar, is also the thing most disrupted by the current supply crisis. The facility that made Pennzoil genuinely different from a commodity synthetic is down for extended repairs. The prices are rising across the board. And for certain viscosity grades, availability is already becoming inconsistent. SuperTech is not the oil it was 10 years ago. Warren Distribution produces a consistent, certified product that the oil community has increasingly validated in used oil analysis results and long-mileage real-world reports. Its commodity supply chain, once seen as a weakness compared to Pennzoil's specialized sourcing, is now more resilient because it does not depend on a single damaged facility. For a naturally aspirated, well-maintained, lower-mileage engine, SuperTech in this market is not just a reasonable choice. It may be the most informed one. For a turbocharged engine where base oil purity and thermal stability genuinely matter, Pennzoil is still the better oil when you can source it and the price still makes sense. But the era of automatically reaching for the premium bottle because premium always wins just ran into the specific crisis that exposed the supply chain premium was built on. The driver who understands that is the one making the best decision in that aisle right now.